It will be. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. This is your host, Devin Thorpe, and I'm excited that today we have with us Michael Dash. He's the CEO and president of Parallel HR, and he's just a great human being. We're going to be talking about some of the great philanthropic and humanitarian initiatives that he's undertaking. I just want you to meet this great guy, so stick around.
Welcome to Your Mark on the World, bringing you another changemaker with champion of social good, Devin D. Thorpe.
This episode is made possible via the support of our sponsors, including Johnson & Johnson's Caring Crowd. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Devin. What a great introduction. I should take you around with me everywhere. Introduce me when I walk into rooms.
You're kind, but Michael, it is an honor to have you on the show, and we are thrilled to have an opportunity to learn more about you. So Parallel HR is well, tell us about what it is. It's a recruiting company, right?
Sure. We're a technology staffing partner. So, I partner with major organizations throughout both Utah and nationally, but primarily in Utah, to help them identify technology talent out in the marketplace, recruit, screen, and then eventually staff them both on a contract and full-time basis for those companies. So that is how I pay the mortgage.
Yes, and we all have to do that. But you've been engaged in a variety of other things. In fact, you mentioned as we were getting started that you just been up at Primary Children's Hospital, a local children's hospital, where you were working on a fundraiser for a little girl who's got leukemia. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I wasn't working on a fundraiser per se. I had fundraised for, and I have for over 10 years, for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. And her name is Allie, and she's 5 years old, and she was the Girl of the Year 2016 when I was nominated for the Man of the Year, Woman of the Year fundraising competition, which is basically a 10-week fundraiser to raise as much money as you can, and you compete against other individuals within the community. They do this in every state. So I competed with the people here in Utah to raise as much money as you could in that 10-week time frame. So I did everything from putting on events to a foodie fundraiser to getting matching donations from companies. And really, it took my life over for 10 weeks. And it was everything I was focused on. And with my team, I was able to raise $75,000 within that 10-week span for LLS. And Allie, being the Girl of the Year, she had acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and it had gone away, but unfortunately it has come back. So she is back in the hospital, and I went up there to bring her favorite ice cream, bubblegum ice cream, and just to see her smile from ice cream while she's getting chemo.
Yeah.
It puts everything into perspective. The little business problems that we have, or life problems that we have, they're not so big anymore after, visiting with somebody like Allie.
Well, it is great to get that kind of perspective. What are some of the other things that you've been engaged in? It seems to me you've been traveling abroad, doing international projects as well.
Yeah, I just actually, so as I've been part of LLS for so long, I just came back from Africa where I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. And it was called Climb for a Cure. And that was also through the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, where we raised money for LLS and got to participate in this once in a lifetime, event of experiencing climbing 19,000 plus feet in Africa at Mount Kilimanjaro. And it really touches my heart every time I think about it, because when you're able to combine two things, like an adventure with philanthropic work, I mean, there's nothing better for me in life. And so it was an amazing experience because I did get to raise some more money for LLS. I also got to experience the African people and what a great spirit they have. And again, it's a humbling experience because we don't realize when we wake up every day how fortunate we are. And and myself as well. So it's trips like that that really allow me to be grounded again and focus on what's important. So I just came back from doing that. I am actually going on a humanitarian trip with an organization called Ignite to Nicaragua in June. And there's been a little unrest in Nicaragua lately. So we're hoping things calm down, and they have started to calm down a little bit. But this organization, Ignite, basically partners up with organizations and takes their executive teams or certain departments on these trips. Okay, so it and focuses on building programs for the community, mostly kids in the community, underprivileged, and it's also a bonding experience for the executives at these organizations. So from a teamwork perspective, it allows them to build more camaraderie, but it also allows you to contribute to society and leave an impact. And those are the types of organizations that I'm really interested and excited about being involved in.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like a really cool project. What triggered your interest in, philanthropy and humanitarianism?
Well, I like to say that it's selfish. I do it for selfish reasons because it just makes me feel good. I mean, it's great that, I am giving back, but it makes me feel good. It makes me feel productive. I've been in sales my whole life. I built this company. I've been, running, an entrepreneur. And don't get me wrong, I love closing a deal and that feeling that I get from making a sale or closing a deal. But as I've grown, as I've gone through challenges in life, as I've, frankly, for a majority of my life, I was a jerk. And, even though I always gave back, from a day-to-day perspective, I didn't treat people the way that I should have. And I went through kind of a metamorphosis a couple of years ago on a trip to Bali. And it was kind of an awakening. And it really changed my perspective on everything. And I started really living in flow, which the whole purpose of living in flow is really following your heart and manifesting your future and making more decisions on your intuition versus overthinking everything, which we all tend to do in life. And just believing that things will work out the way they're supposed to work out when they're supposed to work out. And it's hard to it's hard to kind of do that. You can't do that all the time in every decision in life, but the more you fall into that, the more effortless life becomes, and things like this pop up. And so I really, it fills my soul to be able to put a smile on a child's face who's underprivileged, who doesn't have access to certain things that I was fortunate enough to be born into a middle-class family that I had access. So I feel it's a duty.
Yeah. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your trip to Kilimanjaro. What was the hardest part of that challenge of reaching the summit?
So frankly, the hardest part was being tolerant of people around you that you have never been away with before, that you're with for 8 consecutive days. I'm not talking about people in Africa. I'm talking about the people in the US that you traveled with and that you spent all this time with. So, some people can get on your nerves and things like that, but you just have to kind of, and you're doing this monumental climb, right? So when you hear people complaining about things, it can kind of like get on your nerves. Like I have this kind of this thing in me, like what are you complaining about? Look, we're in Africa. We're on the most incredible experience of your life. Just shut up. But you really, you really want to just, you have to squash that inside of you because, there's better, obviously at that point in time, that person needs some support. So you do what you can to support them, and you get out of your own way. Like you put your ego aside. And as much as I try to check my ego all the time, we still all have egos, and you just got to put it aside. And it's not about me at that time. This person is going through something. So support them and swallow your, your ego or whatever it is, and move on and support each other, right? So that was actually more challenging than any physical part of it, although it was very physically challenging. And I will say it was an 8-day climb, 19,000 plus feet. My friend who was a Navy SEAL had just actually passed away a few months ago, and he had climbed Mount Kilimanjaro literally 2 days before he passed away. So he was on my mind throughout the entire thing, and I documented all of it. And I'm actually about done with putting the documentary together, which is an hour long, which takes you through every single day of it.
Wow. I look forward to seeing that. So, Michael, you've had a really successful career in so many ways. What's the most important lesson you've learned?
Check your ego at the door and don't make emotional decisions. Those have been the two pitfalls of my career, my life, because I've fallen prey to both of them. And, as I said, it hasn't been more than 2.5 years that I've been able to live a life where I'm conscious of those things, and that I practice everything I do in my life by making sure I pay comfort to those things. And I'm not making decisions with my ego, and that, I'm not any better than anybody else. We're all in this together. And realizing and recognizing that, and emotional decision making is 100%. I talk about, I have a bunch of videos on my personal website, and one of them's talking about the pitfalls of emotional decision making. And that's not just in business. Although in business it can be horrible, it's in your personal life too. You get in an argument with your spouse, you say something you wish you didn't say. I can't tell you how many times I've done that. Foot in mouth syndrome. I can teach that all day long. So I think those are by far the biggest things that I've learned in my life. I don't want to say my career, my life. And they're not easy things to kind of be conscious of. But once you are, then you recognize how much better life can be, how much your decision making can be improved when you are actually aware of those things.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I think over the last decade or so, you found yourself moving more and more toward service, more and more toward giving back. Why? What was the fundamental motivation for that shift?
I lived a life that I wasn't happy with. I've had addiction issues my whole life. I had a gambling addiction for, I don't want to date myself, but 30 years, for 20 plus years, excuse me. I've been clean now for 12 years. There's a bad gambling addiction, but with gambling addiction, there's cross addiction. I've recently just been able to give up Adderall. I became addicted to Adderall. So I'm now devoting time to focusing on bringing the addiction conversation to light, because there are so many people out there that, this society is actually built on punishment, not treatment. Unfortunately, that's our reality. So, they throw people in jail who are committing maybe acts against the law to feed their addiction, but they're throwing them in jail. That's not going to help them, right? I understand there's a certain element where you need to, pay some retribution for the things that you've done, but there has to be a better way to approach it. So I started a program called FATE, F-A-T-E. It stands for From Addict to Entrepreneur, where I interview former addicts who are now entrepreneurs, have built great companies, and are giving back to the addict community. So they're hiring addicts, they're setting up a comfortable working environment and support system for them. And I also started a Facebook group that's called exactly that, F period, A period, T period, E period. And if anybody out there wants some support, is interested, please come and join that because we want to support each other. It's for family, it's for friends, it's for addicts, anybody who needs some advice in any area. And, that's another area I want to continue to build. So, like, getting back to the crux of your question, I am the guy who is an expert in the way not to do things. I'm an expert in the way not to do things. And I think there's a value in that. And I want others not to have to go through all the pain I did. And if I had somebody that maybe I could have reached out to earlier in my life, then maybe I wouldn't have made all the mistakes I made. So that's really why I like to give back, especially in the areas where I've screwed up. And in the other areas, again, it's just a level of fulfillment that comes to me that's where I want the rest of my life focused on. And that's where it will be focused on.
Well, that's great. Michael, what's your superpower?
Oh, my superpower. I think my superpower is engaging others for a great cause, whatever that cause might be. And, and whatever definition of great you have. And that might not be the normal superpower that everybody might answer, but that is my superpower. I feel like I can bring people together in support of something great.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today, Michael. Before you go, would you just take a minute and tell people how they can learn more about the things you're doing and about how they can connect with you personally?
Yeah, absolutely. They can definitely find me on the social media channels, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Facebook specifically, where I run that Fate group. And it's Michael Dash. I'm sure you're going to share that. I also have a personal website. It's michaelg-dash.com, and that's all spelled out. And, I have a book coming out probably towards the second half of the year called Chasing the High. And it's basically about addiction, entrepreneurship, overcoming challenges, lawsuits. We could speak for hours on that, but let's not. And giving back. And so, please, I would love for anybody to reach out to me on any of those means. And, any way I can support and we can support each other to build a community of engagement. That's what really it's all about, especially in the divisive world that we live in these days.
Fantastic. Well, Michael, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. We wish you every success in the great work that you're doing.
Thanks so much, Devin. I appreciate it.
All righty. Let's do some good.
At Caring Crowd, we believe everyone has the power to make a difference. Through our crowdfunding platform for community health, we empower passionate people to drive real change. Whether you work for a nonprofit organization, volunteer, or want to get involved for the first time, you can post a campaign on Caring Crowd. Join us, because caring is where change begins.
Thank you for listening. This podcast is available at youtube.com/Devin Thorpe. Subscribe to this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes by searching for Your Mark on the World. Every weekday, Devin hosts a CEO, celebrity, entrepreneur, or other changemaker here on the Your Mark on the World show to inspire and prepare you to make your mark. Devin is a champion of social good, writing about, advocating for, and advising people who are doing good. He is a Forbes contributor who is a recognized thought leader in social entrepreneurship, impact investing, and crowdfunding. To book Devin as a speaker, visit devinthorpe.com.